Trapped 12 feet deep between rocks, this man is waiting for his last moments. For over 100 hours, he's been stuck alone under a 360-kilogram rock in the Canyonlands National Park in the U.S., his hand caught beneath it. In these deserted valleys, there's no one around to hear his screams, and he has no way to call for help. After fighting for his life for 5 days, he finally managed to lift his camera with one hand and started recording his final moments so that the world would know what happened after he's gone. What exactly happened between the narrow rocks of Blue John Canyon? Aron Ralston was born on October 27, 1975, in the town of Marion, Ohio. He was just 12 years old when he started participating in skiing and backpacking at his high school. His passion for these activities quickly grew, and he soon began learning other adventure sports like rafting and hiking. He loved adventure sports so much that Aron quit his 9-to-5 job to dedicate all his time to them. After quitting his job, he headed straight to Aspen, Colorado. This small resort town, surrounded by rocky mountains and snowy peaks, stays open all year for skiing and mountaineering. It was the place where Aron's hobby was about to turn into a passion. A few years before quitting, Aron had picked out 3 climbing projects he wanted to tackle during his annual vacations over the next few years. The first was to summit all 59 of Colorado's 14ers, the peaks over 14,000 feet. That's why they're called the 14th. The other goal was to climb all these mountains in winter and set a world record, and eventually he wanted to summit the highest peaks in all the states of America too. By the end of 2002, when he quit his job, he had already climbed 36 out of 59 14ers in winter. And now, since he was fully available for climbing, breaking this record seemed even more possible. After quitting his job, he went on several dangerous hiking trips with his friends, and once he even escaped death by a hair's breadth. He had gone out and come back. Because of his habit of taking risks, his friends often refused to go with him. And this time was no different. One day, Aron and some of his friends planned a hiking trip. But a few days before the trip, for some reason, his friends backed out. Aron didn't want to go alone on the trip, so he thought he'd go somewhere else during that free time. He decided to head to Utah, but he hadn't yet figured out where exactly in Utah to go. Usually, whenever Aron was going alone, where he had not gone before, his roommates would have known where he was. But this time, since he didn't even know where in Utah he'd end up, he only told his friends this much. While traveling, he finally decided he'd go to Canyonlands National Park in Utah and spend the next 5 days climbing various anonymous slot canyons there. Slot canyons are basically narrow, deep valleys that run between tall, rocky mountains and plains. Canyonlands National Park has a bunch of these slot canyons. The canyons are real. Every year, around 800,000 tourists come here. But since this national park spreads over thousands of square kilometers, about 95% of it is completely empty and deserted. One such little-known canyon was called Blue John Canyon. On Saturday, April 26, 2003, Aron arrived at Canyonlands National Park at around 9 in the morning. He parked his truck about 15 miles from Blue John Canyon on the side of a dirt road, then got on his bike and headed toward the canyon. Aron, packed just for one day, carrying 2 burritos, 4 liters of water, and a bit of climbing gear. Then he sped off on his bike, reaching the entrance of Blue John Canyon. From there, his hike began, and by around 2:30 in the afternoon, he had already gone about 7 miles into Aron Canyon. About 15 minutes later, he started descending deeper into the canyon. From above, the canyon looked about 11 to 12 feet deep. The edges were getting tighter, almost like narrow gutters, with massive walls towering between them. The rocks were stuck. Aron started carefully stepping down, placing each foot cautiously on the stones. Ahead, he found a rock about the size of a bus tire wedged in. The plan was for Aron to hang onto this rock and then leap down to the canyon floor. Moving steadily, he grabbed the lower edge of the rock. But before he could put his full weight on it, he heard the rock start to shift. He immediately realized it was moving, let go, and jumped straight down to the canyon floor. His landing was a bit harder than he expected, but he managed to land without falling down into a rocky canyon. But the next moment, a loose stone slipped and landed right on Aron's right hand. For several minutes, a scared and panicked Aron screamed out loud in pain, trying hard to free his arm. But after a while, he realized this wasn't going to be easy. To calm himself a bit, he quickly took out a water bottle from his bag and gulped down most of the remaining liter in just 3 big sips. That's when it hit him. He had no idea how long he was going to be stuck here. Now he has to use the remaining water very carefully. After calming himself down a bit, Aron started thinking about how to get his arm out, which had already turned blue because the blood wasn't circulating. If he didn't do something soon, he could lose his hand. First, Aron took out all his stuff to see what could help him get out of there. He didn't have a cell phone, so calling for help was out of the question. From his bag, he pulled out a CD player, some batteries, a camera, a headlamp, some ropes, a police badge, and a multi-tool. He pulled out the tool device. Looking at the rest of the stuff, he figured he had only 3 possible options. Either he could try to break the stone from the edges using his multi-tool, or he could use ropes to make a pulley system to lift the stone up. Or the third and toughest option was to cut his own arm. Obviously, he didn't even want to think about that last option. He quickly took out the knife from his multi-tool and started breaking the stone. Hour after hour passed by. The daylight turned to night, but not even a corner of the stone moved or broke. He spent the whole night trying, and by the next morning, he had only managed to break the stone into a few small pieces. He quickly shifted his attention to another plan. Now he had to make a pulley to lift the stone by tying it. Struggling, he hung the pulley from a rock on the mountain with one hand and wrapped the rope around the fallen stone. The advantage of a pulley is that it takes less effort to lift any weight. He thought maybe with the pulley, he could move the stone. He could barely lift it even a little and pull his hand out. But with one hand, no matter how hard he tried, it wasn't enough. After hours of more failed efforts, Aron started breaking the rock again. But once again, nothing came of it. By the next day, it was already 3 p.m., and Aron had been stuck in the canyon for 24 hours. Seeing all his efforts fail, he picked up his camera and recorded a video message. It was Sunday, 3:05 p.m. "I've been trapped in Blue John Canyon for 24 hours now. My name is Aron Ralston. If anyone comes across this video, please kindly share it with my parents." Aron then shows his arm crushed under a stone in front of the camera and talks about all his struggles over the past 24 hours. After that, he says goodbye to his family with tear-filled eyes. The next morning, he was completely exhausted from hunger, thirst, and pain. Finally, he started thinking about his last option. What if he cut off his arm to free it from the stone? His situation was so unbearable that he was even willing to lose his arm just to escape death. He was thinking about cutting his arm, and the first thing that popped into his mind was blood loss. He figured he could tie his arm with his water pipe to slow down the bleeding. But the real problem was the knife. He had to use it to cut his arm. The little knife on his multi-tool was already dull, which made the whole thing way more painful. In fact, cutting through the bone with that knife was totally impossible. By 5 a.m. the next morning, he had been stuck in the canyon for nearly 68 hours. Aron's body was now worn out from hunger and thirst. He was slowly giving up. The last few drops of water in his bottle were gone. Since the day before, he had been collecting his urine in a thermos bag tied around his waist. Now, to stay alive, he had no choice but to drink it. He picked up the camera again, recorded some goodbye messages for his family, and then once more surrendered himself to death. Majid spent one more night and the entire next day trapped in this helpless state. Sometimes he drifted into semi-conscious daydreams. Sometimes he counted the hours stuck in the canyon, and sometimes he cursed himself for coming here. Why didn't he tell anyone? But the worst part was when his throat would dry up completely, causing intense pain, and in his desperate thirst, He had to sip his own urine. Every time, the disgust would make his stomach turn, but there was nothing left in his body to throw up. It was 9 a.m. on May 1st, and Aron had been stuck in the canyon for 120 hours. There was still no hope of his arms being freed, nor had any help arrived. For the past 3 days, he'd been screaming loudly, hoping someone would hear him. He tried. But there was no way the sound could get out of this canyon, and even if it did, who in this national park that stretches over thousands of square kilometers would hear it? Defeated, Aron closed his eyes once again. Just as sleep was about to take him, he dreamt of a 3-year-old child walking toward him. Aron knew it was his son. He reached out to pick him up, but then he saw that his right arm was cut off, the same arm that had been trapped under the rock all this time. At that moment, Aron's eyes snapped open. Back then, he didn't have a son, but he realized that his future had shown up in that dream. Maybe it was a sign that he could still come back to life. Thinking this, life suddenly rushed back into Aron's lifeless body. By now, his arm had completely rotted away. When Aron stabbed it with a knife, the skin would melt like warm butter, and he could even hear the sound of gases escaping from the wound. That meant cutting through the flesh was much easier now, but the bone was still strong. He had to find a way to break that bone no matter what. Then an idea popped into his mind. So far, he was only thinking about how to break the bone, but he could actually snap it. His arm was twisted at a weird angle behind the stone, and it was high enough off the ground for him to stand up straight. So if he pushed hard on the bone of his trapped arm while trying to sit down on the ground, maybe the torque would break it. For the first time in 5 days, Aron genuinely felt that something could happen. Without wasting a moment, Majid did just that and finally broke the bone. Then, using the same knife, he cut through the rest of the arm and freed himself. But the trouble wasn't over yet. Before he could bleed out completely, he had to get out of the canyon and make it several miles to his car. Exhausted and weak, Aron managed to climb the rocky walls of the canyon using just one arm and finally got out. Not far ahead, he came across a family who was on vacation. They gave Aron food and water and immediately called for help. After nearly 4 hours since losing his arm and being stuck in the canyon for 127 hours, Aron Ralston was finally rescued with the help of a helicopter. After 6 days and 5 nights of agony, his body was in bad shape. He'd lost up to 40 pounds, and his blood volume dropped by 25%. A few days later, a team of 13 people used hydraulic jacks and winches to move that 360-kilogram boulder and free Aron's arm. 6 months after the accident, Aron returned to the same canyon with a TV crew on his 28th birthday and told his whole story. But that was just the beginning. In the years that followed, Aron became a celebrity and appeared on many shows and events. His book, Between a Rock and a Hard Place, became a bestseller in several countries. He was climbing. In 2010, a movie was made about his accident called 127 Hours. The scene in the film where Aron is shown cutting off his own arm made many people faint. In February 2020, his first son was born. The same son who 7 years earlier had come into the world during one of the toughest moments of his life. Right after his recovery, he started planning to climb the 59 14ers again. And in 2005, he became the first person to solo climb all those peaks in winter. Aron Ralston still lives with a prosthetic arm today. He's not just a climber. He's also a corporate motivational speaker who charges thousands for just a few hours session. In one of his speeches, he recalled that accident and said, "I lost my hand but got my life back. Hopefully you all will like and share this video. Thanks so much for your love and comments. See you in the next amazing video."